Hello and welcome to the Property Unleashed podcast with me, Mark Fitzgerald. And today I am joined once again by Graeme Lindley, our serviced accommodation expert. Welcome to the show, Graeme. Great to have you back.
Hi, Mark. Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be back.
Well, we had such a great response from the first episode that I wanted to get Graeme back and really just ask him some questions about serviced accommodation, because it is a great strategy. And of course, we are now releasing the Ultimate Serviced Accommodation Business Builder program that Graeme is heading up. And we're getting great responses from the first students that have been on that as well. So a lot of people out there are looking at serviced accommodation or have potentially started in serviced accommodation and maybe finding it hard. And by getting an expert like Graeme back on the show, it's our opportunity and our chance to pick its brains and to see what it's all about. So, I mean, realistically, Graeme, if you can just tell us a quick recap about yourself, that would be great.
Sure. Yeah, thank you, Mark. So, yeah, my name's Graeme Lindley. I operate Prim Short Stays in Nottingham. We are now the leading short stay agent in Nottingham, if not the East Midlands. I've got a number of companies around the service accommodation space. We've got software coming out that's very exciting called Guestflow, which plugs into channel managers and just helps streamline operations. So we've really got that side of the business nailed with a fantastic team. I'm out of the day-to-day noise, let's say, of the business, which is great. Plus, of course, we've got lots of rent-to-rents through other SPVs and some units that I now own as well. So, yeah, it's very exciting.
And just for the listeners that maybe are new to serviced accommodation, SA, as it's called, Airbnbs, short stay lets, we can name it all day long. Can you just tell us what is serviced accommodation?
Sure. Yeah. So you're right. It's got so many names. I mean, in America, it's vacation rentals. I think, historically, it was always self-catering. It's not a new thing. It's been going since the 60s. But thanks to Airbnb, now a lot more people are aware of it. And, millennials, they'll only look at Airbnb and to stay in serviced accommodation. So it's overnight accommodation. Ultimately, we're selling bed spaces per person per night. But lots of different property types. It's not just your vanilla city centre apartments that a lot of people think of when they think Airbnb and service accommodation. It can work in lots of property types, whether it's tree houses, garden pods, houses, potentially HMOs that no longer have a HMO license. So there is a lot of ways of making this work.
And why did you choose serviced accommodation?
Good question. I used to ask myself that. there's a bit of magic, I think, in naivety. Sometimes you don't know what you're going to be taking on, and I'd encourage that rather than trying to work out everything you're going to do to solve every single problem you're ever going to have in a business. I think actually, if it's something that interests you, just get going, and then you will solve the problems as you take them on. But yeah, service accommodation, I just felt it was crest of the wave. I was at a property networking event. Few people were talking about it, but it seemed pretty early days back then. And yeah, I just got fired up by it. My trade was an engineer, and I just felt like I was ready for more and to take on more. And I could see that service accommodation was what we call noisy or logistically challenging. There's lots going on compared to even just a letting agent. What they do every 6 months, we're potentially doing every 2 days. And so there's a lot of work, but I felt that my skill set as an engineer meant I could build better systems, better automation, and just provide a really good service,
So what do you need, in your opinion, to start a serviced accommodation business?
What do you need? You just need the right mindset, Mark. Honestly, to get out of your own way, I think, is one of the number one things. And that's what's stopping a lot of people. They just don't realize their own potential. And so that's it. I think otherwise you will find deals, you will find everything that you need along the way. It's just making a commitment to do it, to get going.
So to find properties for serviced accommodation, do you speak to landlords? Do you speak to agents? And basically, why would they want to work with us?
Yeah, all of the above. Yeah, we work with more so with agents now that we've got a bit of a presence and we're known. But actually, my very first units came via an agent. They do say build relationships with agents early on, and it will pay you dividends. And so, and of course, direct to landlord, whether that's through networking, organic, just word of mouth and referral, of course, advertising. So we do a little bit of advertising to speak to landlords. And generally, landlords want to get into service accommodation for different reasons. There's sometimes resistance, and the same with agents. They just think, parties, subletting, it's not allowed, and they've heard of the nightmare stories in the Daily Mail. So sometimes there's a bit of resistance to overcome initially, but a lot of landlords now are actually much more open to it than they were 6-7 years ago when I was getting going. And so they understand that it is a viable alternative strategy for their properties, for their assets. And of course, most landlords own properties because it's an investment and they just want the strongest possible return with, of course, the security as well. So service accommodation now being that viable alternative that does generate more income, that's the number one reason why landlords might want to work with you. But the benefit of SA is it brings a lot more flexibility as well. Of course, we have guests, so that there's no tenants. We've got landlords that have really had bad experiences with tenants that potentially stopped paying, and it took many months, if not years, to get them out. And then, of course, they were left with trashed properties. With us, even if we have a guest staying for 3 months, we'll make sure cleaners are popping in and we've got eyes on that property all the time. So properties are kept in a really high condition, much better show home conditions, So there's quite a few reasons, a good number of reasons why landlords would want to look at SA. And that's not even to really talk about the tax benefits as well, which we go really into detail on the course. But yeah, there's quite a few tax perks. You've got commercial income, not residential income, from your residential property. So there's no flying under the radar. Everything we're doing is perfectly legit, but of course it does open up some really creative strategies.
Brilliant. And of course, a lot of people think, property is an expensive game at the end of the day, that you need mountains of money to start any sort of thing in property. Of course, is that the same with serviced accommodation? Do you need a lot of money to start, or how much money do you think you roughly need?
No, honestly, you don't. I mean, I got going with a block of 4 rent-to-rents, and on that one, my only real cost initially was the furniture. And even that, if you don't have the capital to purchase the furniture for a rent-to-rent that comes unfurnished, because of course a lot of rent-to-rents may come furnished, there's options. You can lease it, you can have potentially put it on credit card, potentially get investors in. So actually no money is required to really get going.
A lot of people think that when you get started, of course, there's lots of pitfalls out there if you don't know what you're doing. So do you think having that level of knowledge is something that you really, really need to start with? And then you've got the basis foundations to go out there, not to make, silly mistakes that can cost you money.
Yeah, absolutely. You need a grounding in knowledge. And I think ultimately you want someone that's going to show you the way and just point out some of the more obvious things. But I wouldn't say to try and, it's not a good policy to try and solve all of the potential problems before you even get going. I think that's waiting for the planets to align somewhat. And ultimately, you can solve the challenges as you get to them. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah. And a big one is a lot of people will say, well, I can't see serviced accommodation working in my area. Is there specific areas where it works and specific areas it won't work?
Honestly, it works everywhere. Wherever there is overnight accommodation requirements. So that's the easiest thing to do. Have a look to see what options there are, as if you were a guest looking to stay in your area, and look at the kind of markets they're going after, the kind of clientele, if you like. But honestly, it works everywhere. It's just about making the numbers work and identifying the right type of property for that target clientele in your area, just making sure the numbers stack.
Cool. Do you need to have like a degree in interior design to actually be successful in serviced accommodation?
Absolutely not. So sorry, any interior designers out there. I've never used an interior designer. That said, I've got a bit of a natural interest in it anyway. I know what works, what doesn't. I think one pro tip is the magic number is 3. Don't go for more colors than 3 colors. That's your theme. But honestly, a trip down to the range find some stuff that's pretty modern. They're always changing their stock, so you're not going to look like everyone else's Airbnbs out there. It's pretty cheap and cost effective, and it's quite easy to get a theme going on within your service accommodation.
And I always hear a lot of worries. People are worried about, people having parties and damaging the properties and stuff like that. Are there ways and methods that you train to make sure that, we limit anything like that ever happening in our units?
Yeah, so, it is probably the number one risk. And not only do you risk like having the property trashed and of course the costs that go with that, you risk upsetting the neighbours, you risk potentially the police get involved, the council, so actually, rightly so, if you're identifying it as a big risk, you should be. However, though all of those risks, they can be mitigated with, really thorough checking processes. We've got some of the industry leading checking processes. Of course, that's not so great for the guest experience. There's a balance to be struck, but really your job as an agent or as a rent-to-rent operator is to look after the property and to just make sure it can keep generating income for you. So yeah, we go through all of our checking processes, the ways that we look out for the various red flags that may be involved. Plus, of course, we use noise monitors in our properties. And these are, they don't record voices or anything like that. They just record or monitor the ambient noise volume, and then they'll just send us an alert if it gets a bit high. And I think actually there's a device out there that's constantly looking for the number of Bluetooth devices that's in range, and if that number goes up, you're going to get an alert. So even if people are being quiet and on the hush whilst they're bringing in the sound system, it's going to see that there's suddenly 30 Bluetooth devices within range and send you an alert. So there's quite a few ways of getting around that problem.
No, that's great. I didn't know that one. That's fantastic. And I know you've got, there's modules and modules of this stuff. And one of them here is a question that we've been asked as well, is like, how do you find deals? And I know you've got, a good couple of modules where, you talk about finding deals and negotiations and things like that. But, in your opinion, are there deals everywhere to be had?
Yeah, absolutely. Like there are tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of landlords, investors and properties and agents. And, good business is about solving problems. So don't try and solve the wrong problem for someone. It's about good selling. It's about listening first and getting in front of landlords. And don't think that you necessarily need to be massive and already operational to get deals. It's about word of mouth. It's about acting as a professional, as a business person, being committed, and even doing the course that we've put together puts you in a much better position than a lot of the people that's out there looking for units. So yeah, absolutely, finding units is not that hard, and then negotiating them, it's an art that you'll get better at as you practice. So even if you find a unit and you fail to get it over the line, that's not a waste of time. Even if you get it 90% of the way this time, that next deal is just around the corner and you've already done the first 90%. So then you just need to work out how to close it and get it over the line. So genuinely, that is the best way of going about it. In fact, when I'd only just recently got going and I had an opportunity to take on a block of 11 units, which at the time was, quite big, quite significant. And yeah, the owners just said to me, right, if you can find buyers for it, we'll give you exclusivity. I had a 3-month exclusive period before Savills at selling it, who was their usual agent. So if you don't ask, you don't get. I was not operational. I was not a big business person. I didn't have a big team or employees or anything at that point. But it's about solving a problem for other people.
Yeah, definitely. And a lot of people are concerned. Obviously, they can set up their units, they can do their due diligence and everything like that. But is it easy to find guests? Is it easy to find people to stay in your units?
Yeah, the guests, certainly that is the easier thing. There is always demand. It's just getting the right type of guests. And of course, you want as long as possible. You want guests that are going to stay for a few weeks, not 1 or 2 nights. So it's about encouraging that type of booking. And so it's not just a matter of just listing it on Airbnb and having every weekend taken for the next 4 months, and suddenly you can't. Then you may get a multi-week inquiry and you can't put them in because all of your weekends are taken and you're just trying to flog midweek, then a bit cheaper. That's where it doesn't work so easily. So there needs to be a bit of strategy above just listing it on the obvious online travel agencies. But yeah, it is very easy, whether you're relying on those, the big boys, Airbnb, Booking.com, Expedia, or going after your own guests and finding your own leads. And there's quite a few ways of doing that.
And I mean, realistically, obviously, the questions I've pinged at you here, you've had great answers for, which is really, really appreciative. And, people are going to take massive, massive value away from this. But why did you actually want to build the training in the first place?
Yeah, good question. I think there's a lack of knowledge from a lot of people that are getting going, and they may have done a weekend course, and they're learning from people that haven't actually operated at the scale we've operated at. So this has been everything. This has been my life for the last 7 years. It's like lived and breathed it. So I understand it very intricately. And so I really wanted to put everything out there and have not just what you need to get off the ground, but even if you've got a few units, how to really level up. And maybe it's about scaling, maybe it's about streamlining, maybe it's about stepping away from your business. I wanted it all in there. So yeah, I genuinely get fired up by helping people, by seeing other people succeed. And there's no limit to that. There is no limit to the amount of growth and contribution and the amount that I can help other people become successful. So that's a big driver for me.
I mean, a lot of people will look at trainings and will think, well, this one does this one, but this one's got this one. I can tell you for a fact, this has got everything in it. And I mean, it even comes down to a lot of people ask the questions about, contracts and resources and things like that. And of course, has the training got all of these things in?
Yeah, we put the whole lot in, everything you need, whether it's the spreadsheets on how to stack a deal, our proposal templates and how we communicate with landlords, whether it's pre-sale or once they're going live, and everything we do for that. All of our legals, I think I spent £5,000 on having our legal packs done. That's all included. So yeah, I didn't want anything kind of held behind any bars,
No, and there's actually sections as well where there's screen shares, step by step, shows you how to set your units up as well, isn't there?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, sometimes me just doing a piece to camera isn't enough. So we go onto my laptop and I take you through exactly how to work your way through some of the spreadsheets, for example.
Where I think it differs from a lot of the trainings and things that I've seen is also, it's not just showing you how to find the odd unit, set them up, and then leaving you to it. It's actually more than that. It's like building in systems, getting staff involved if that's where you want to go, and really building a sustainable company, a sustainable business for the future, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, good business is sustainable business. Sustainable as in you're going to be able to continue. This is not about making a quick buck or quick flash in the pan thing. This is about real, sustainable, life-changing income. And yeah, that's the beauty with business. That's what this can do. I was a wage slave, as you might call it, for almost 20 years. So I understand what that's like and how, no matter how hard and how many hours I was doing, I was always hitting limits. And so now to be able to be on the other side of that and help people out of their situation by creating a really good business, that's what it's all about.
And it is. And it's not just that. I mean, I'm massive on communities. I'm massive on supporting people, because at the end of the day, we genuinely do want to see people succeed. This isn't just about trying to sell something. This is about making sure that people get value from it and can actually take that value, implement it, and start doing stuff. So what else do you get, so to speak, the level of support that you get with this training as well, Graeme?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've got a Facebook group. Anyone can ask any questions anytime. And of course, then everyone gets to benefit from the answers. Plus, there's coaching calls. We don't want to just say, right, here's the course and here's everything you need. I think when the rubber hits the road, you've got actual deals, you've got actual issues. You want someone that has got the experience and the knowledge how to navigate your way through these, or maximize the opportunities you've got in front of you, or just remove blockages for you. So that's why group coaching is really important. So yeah, it comes with all of that.
Yeah, and it comes with that lasts over 3 months. So at the end of the day, there's plenty of coaching, call support. We know property can take a bit of time, so you can get your head into the training. You can start to learn things, start to answer the questions, get yourself set up. I always like to stay set up for success, set up in the right manner, set up in the right way, moving yourself forward. Of course, with Graham, whole support there. And it's like the Facebook group, you never leave. So it's not like you've got to pay extra or anything like that to stay in the Facebook group. So if you do have a problem 8 months, 9 months, 12 months down the line, you've still got the support from this training and from Graham himself. So, I mean, that's all the questions at the moment that we pinged at me that I just wanted to ask you and to be able to put into a podcast, because it's always great to give the listeners something back. There'll be a lot of people are interested in serviced accommodation, and there'll be some landlords that probably potentially are listening to this as well that are thinking, do you know what, I've got some flats or I've got some units, maybe I could convert those into serviced accommodation. And if they were thinking about that and then thinking about potentially, well, if I got trained, I could just take what I've already owned and I could just convert it into serviced accommodation units. Would you be able to help them with that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we've been asked that a couple of times already. So landlords that want to do it themselves, how to do it, how to set it up for success, how to step away from that whether you want to then replicate that for other people's properties and turn it into a bigger business, or even potentially hand over to a management company. How are you going to know that they're going to be doing a good job without having the knowledge and the understanding of what's really involved? It'll be very hard to first identify the best companies to hand over to, but also like monitor, manage, make sure they are continuing to do a good job. So yeah, we cover all of that.
Yeah, and of course, there's three fundamental, really good strategies that you can use with serviced accommodation. Of course, in property, there's loads of different strategies that you can use. All of those are covered. So we cover rent to rent, we cover management, we cover doing joint ventures as well. Well, Graham does very in-depthly as well, exactly step by steps, what to say, what to do, how to get these deals. Because at the end of the day, as we say, it's all about quality over quantity at the end of the day. But it is 10 modules. It is over 70 videos that you can follow along with, that you have access to. This is a brand new training going out onto the market now. We've already got people on there who are working their way through it, and we're getting some fantastic feedback from these guys already. So if you are thinking about getting into serviced accommodation, you want to find out more, visit thepropertyunleashed.com, click on the Ultimate Serviced Accommodation Business Builder thumbnail, and you will be taken through to find out more. And if you have any major problems or questions, then do feel free to reach out to me on social media platforms or via hello@thepropertyunleashed.com, and I'd be more than happy to answer any of your questions there. I think the last question I have for you, Graham, is why should you join this training?
Why should you join this training? Because I've put everything into it, everything you're going to need. And if there is anything missing, we're going to add that as well. Honestly, it really is the one-stop shop. If you want to succeed in SA, this is what you need. That's why we called it the Ultimate SA course.
Yeah. And I think also, just emphasizing on what Graham says there, it is a work in progress. So it's not the be all and end all, because obviously when you start something, it's all new to you. You get 7 years down the line like Graham has, and it can be quite difficult to remember everything that you did at the start, so to speak. So if you have got the questions, that's why the coaching calls are so important. You can ask them to Graham. And if we feel that something there needs to be added, then we'll film it, we'll get it added, and we'll make sure that this is the best SA training on the market currently. I would like to thank you for your time today, Graham. It's always a pleasure to see you. And when we get more questions, it would be great to have you back on the show as well, mate.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd look forward to that. Thank you, Mark. Been a pleasure.
Brilliant. Great stuff. Great stuff. Well, feel free to visit thepropertyunleashed.com for all your free tools and resources. We have a 10-step rent-to-rent guide. We have a 10-step serviced accommodation guide that was made by Graham himself. We have a deal analyzing spreadsheet that I supply for you, as well as a whole host of other masterclass trainings that are coming through. If you've enjoyed this episode, please feel free to share, subscribe, like it, comment on it, reach out to me on social media. I will never message you first, but feel free to message me and then we can chat, because there are a lot of people out there that like to pretend they are people. But I'm not selling cryptocurrencies or anything like that. So feel free to message me, and I'm always happy to have a chat. It's great to have you joining me here. I hope you join me for the next episode. I look forward to it. Keep focusing on your vision, pushing forward on your goals. And bye for now.